Day 25, ladies and gentlemen, of our 1000 Dawns. And today, ladies and gentlemen, as we are starting to make the long, progressive, but challenging climb upwards, and some of the things that I mentioned over the course of yesterday, and how somehow or other we have to lighten our burden so we can sort of make ourselves aerodynamic and as focused and as streamlined as possible to start going upwards. And I talked about, living very vicariously with frugality, such as not spending money on anything apart from things that are absolutely necessary. And you'll be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, how far this goes. And surprisingly, it's not particularly that difficult once you start telling yourself the only way you're going to do this is to go through this one step at a time and to follow, like a set of protocols. It's all part of Operation Thoracicus anyway, because a lot of it does involve having to make very distinctive changes to lifestyle if it means we're going to go from place to place, theoretically as well as mentally. But there is also one other great litigation, ladies and gentlemen, to this whole travelling upwards. And you may remember a couple of moments ago, I used the expression to lighten our burden. Well, surprisingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, this is something that doesn't come just in the metaphorical sense. How we talk about finances and staying focused, and we have clear objectives in mind. But I'm also talking about from a very, very physical point of view. Like, I'll give you guys an example. Starting tomorrow, I would have officially been in my new job for exactly a whole month. And during that month, I've lost over a stone in weight. And by the presidents we're heading towards probably this time, or probably even by the end of March, we'll have gone from 1410 to probably as low as 1312 or maybe 1311 for that matter. Losing, however, a stone a month isn't, it's because it's the sort of thing that will start catching up in one shape or another. I mean, I don't want to say for certain, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm pretty sure there was a point right about this time last year where I was almost 19 stone. And we've managed to shave away nearly just about 4 stone in 12 months. That's at least losing a whole stone on average every 3 months. And we're still going, ladies and gentlemen. That's the thing that's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months. Is the progression faster? Is the progression going to be the same as before? As we watch what's sort of left start oozing away, if you pardon the expression. Now, the thing to note is that is this really like a healthy way to live, so to speak? I mean, I feel healthier than I did this time last year. That's certainly that's something. But does it technically make things better? Well, to be honest, I have always argued that, to be honest, I could always stand to lose. I was always quite a little bit bigger than some of the other kids when I was still a child in school and stuff like that. But it wasn't really one of those things that annoyed me or it really got me down or anything like that. Because it never really became a bullying thing sort of thing. It's because I was just sort of happy being, in my own with my appearance, and I was just comfortable being myself in a way that I didn't need to justify it, because guess what? It was just what I had chosen, and well, regardless of how my adolescence was and stuff like that, I think it's fair to say, well, it was just one of those things that happened. And you know what? Sometimes these things happen. But what I will also say is that it was round about the time when intermediate patterns when I was working last year, is that I was starting to lose weight little by little. And the reason for that is down to something very, very simplistic. The only way, and this is going to be a bit of a generalization to put it, but the only way you're going to solve the issue of obesity the same way I've done it is not through stagnation, the way that I've conquered any everlasting vestiges I might or possibly ever had when it came to alcohol. This, for obesity, it's quite different. The only way to actually solve the issues with obesity is to find a way to encourage people that they have to start looking after themselves. How do I know that? Because not only was I starting to lose weight, that I actually had like a proper budget and a proper scheduling and stuff like that for my day and what I was supposed to do with my day, etc., etc., whilst I was working. But I also had, ladies and gentlemen, or what I was starting to do was prepare my own lunches. Nutritious, filling, very low in salt and fat, and it was pretty much what I need, and it cost me, all things considered, about a fifth of anything that I would have just bought wholesale in a supermarket. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is also the sort of thing that's actually going to, encourage a lot of people who are also like taking very frugarious levels of expenditure, is that you do actually save an awful lot of money by doing this. And there must be people out there in supermarkets and stuff like that must be absolutely fuming at the thought that I can literally afford to keep myself, doing lunches and possibly even dinner and stuff like that for probably about as little as, I'd say, £25 a week from Monday to Friday. And maybe we ought to put this a little bit to the test next week. I'll give myself a budget of literally 25 quid. And the point of it is very simple. Lunches all the way through the week. So this averages out to about £5 a day. However, there are some things, because the problem only with this is that there are some things I will sort of like have to buy on the day while it's kind of at its ripest and its most rich and stuff like that. So it could easily turn into an example of pay £10 on a Sunday, and then it's like a budget of about £3 for the rest of the week. That might just be what it comes down to, but maybe we'll play it by ear just to see exactly how far we can go. Because surprisingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, my diet at this moment in time, it does consist of quite a lot of fruit. I do eat because I've always loved this stuff, but I've always got into the habit of having even more of it in my lunches. Like I have apples, bananas, strawberries, pineapples, mangoes, etc., stuff like that. And I know I've heard that pineapple is very, very good for burning fat, but so is also the uptick in exercise. And even though my job doesn't really involve much exercise, unfortunately, the only the upside to that is, well, have a diet that is relatively sedentary and lacking in a high calorie intake. And kind of for that to also be a little, just because I think on average my lunches, well, basically to get me from when I start work to when it ends, it averages about maybe 800 calories, give or take. But sometimes, literally, I will come home and I probably might only have as much as a cup of tea, and to be honest, that's pretty much me sorted, because I also drink quite a lot of water when I'm at work, and I usually average about like half a litre a day in water. And well, what else can I say apart from it? If it works, because to be honest, that's just kind of how it is. They say that the average adult male in the United Kingdom has to have an intake of about 2,000 calories a day. I would say, putting all things into consideration, I'm probably getting by for the last 3.5 weeks about maybe half of this. But as I've mentioned before, I think I think not, if you will, ladies and gentlemen, because, well, if that's true, and it seems to be doing some good, maybe a bit slow to some people, but I think there is a risk of doing too much too quickly. And usually in my spare moments, mostly during my days off, I will try and get myself down to the gym and sort of have a bit of not only having a balanced diet, but having a balanced lifestyle, so that for what time I do have, I make the most of what I can get in any space of time. It all comes down to not only good management and excellent organization, but as I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, it means I'm actually looking after myself. And in order to look after myself, I've got to know exactly what is going on in my life. Which also, it brings us very neatly full circle, I reckon. And much like doing these videos, I usually reserve these videos for the night time when I still have plenty of energy in the tank, but just enough so that I can reflect on the day's events and move on to the next ones. And we'll go again from there. So I hope all of you guys enjoyed this, and I will see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.